The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Digitalk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 weyanema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Digitalk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugende mu maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop, and smart TVs. As we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good evening, our viewers. We thank you for joining us this evening. It's another edition of the Hotline. And my name is Abdalatif. As always, we're here every Monday looking into issues that are making rounds within the country and, of course, the entire region. Basically, the discussion rotates around leadership, governance, and, of course, that's politics. So there is a lot that has been happening. We all know that on the 9th day of August, that is last Tuesday, Kenyans went to the polls to decide who will be their next president for the 5 years to come, taking over after President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has held 2 successful terms in Kenya. And now today, like the entire continent and elsewhere in the world, you know, there were people were in high expectations, people were in excitements were all over, and the emotions were high. Like people wanted to see who is the next president of Kenya. And then just a few minutes back, less than an hour, of course, the chairperson for the IEBC, the Electoral Commission and Boundaries Commission of Kenya, Wafula Chebukati, has come up to announce who is the next president of the Republic of Kenya for the next 5 years. Of course, this came up when, you know, it caused such mixed reactions from different people, different camps, and of course, people had different expectations. This was a neck-to-neck election. But of course, as Ugandans, there is a lot that we have to draw as lessons from Kenya. We all know what happened in 2017 for those who were around to witness the elections in Kenya. That turned violent, and over 1,000 people lost their lives. And I want to thank the Kenyans that for this time round, they actually took very, very keen lessons from what transpired in 2017, and they've been so much careful not to repeat the same mistakes that were done then, in that there is no bloodshed. Yes, you cannot rule out violence totally, but the magnitude at which it happens differs, and maybe can sum it up as the process has been violent or not. As we speak, Kenya has a new president-elect, that is William Ruto. He is the next president. He has been voted overwhelmingly, that is with 7,761,41 votes, making him the president of Kenya with 50.49%. And of course, this was bad news for the Azimio Umoja camp that was led by, that fronted Raila Odinga, who has been in this game for quite a long time. Maybe he was meant to belong to the opposition forever. And indeed, this election has proved that Raila Odinga is a man of the opposition. And even this time, whereby everyone thought that maybe for only this time, he will be in State House as the president of Kenya, but things have not been as he thought and as maybe he planned. He came up with 6,942,930 votes, which representation of around 48%. Well, in the studios, I am not alone. I've been joined by comrades, colleagues. I want to start with my senior brother here, Ndugu Moses Magoola. Moses Magoola has been an observer in Kenya for most of the previous elections, and he has a lot to share with us. Given what transpired this time, I want to believe he didn't make it this time round, but he has been keenly observing and following the elections. And so we have a lot to share he has a lot to share with us. And he's also the programs manager for the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda. You all know that whenever we are into elections in Uganda, many journalists face it rough. This time round in Kenya, it was a different case. Moses will give us more. And then I also have Mr. Osinde Michael Orachi. Orachi is a spokesperson ×2 squared for the National Consultaive Forum. This is the body that brings together all registered political parties in Uganda. He is the mouthpiece for that mighty body. And at the same time, he's a member of the Uganda People's Congress, the AU. So I don't know which part of UPC, because UPC has factions. He will also tell us. Mr. Osinde, please, you can greet our viewers eagerly waiting to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ndugu Jin, for this opportunity. It's a very wonderful setup. I'm humbled. When I entered here, I thought I was in Dubai. The arrangement here, I'm so humbled to find this aspect of alternative digital.
Thank you.
And a very warm welcome. Stay tuned, gentlemen.
Thank you. I also have Ndugu Moses Magoola. Please say hi to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Abdulatif. Thank you to Digital Talk for this opportunity once again to be here. The last time I came, I think barely a few days after we experienced closure, and that was unfortunate. And I'd like to congratulate you for the reopening and being back on air. Is such a very fulfilling kind of feel for all of us who are associated with the great work that you do. We we count it a blessing for the work that Digital Alternative does. So I'm glad to be here, and wish to greet everyone who's out there watching. Suppose we're going to have a very candid and very good kind of discussion about the news that is coming out from our neighboring brothers.
Thank you so much, Ndugu Moses. We have also been joined by Mr. Henry Muguzi. He is the Executive Director for the Action Alliance for Finance Monitoring. And as we speak, he is on ground in Kenya. I am going to give him an opportunity to also speak, say hi to our viewers, and of course, tell us how the situation is as it is right now in Kenya. Mr. Muguzi.
Thank you very much. It will be kind to me, but quite an honor for me to be hosted on Talk first time. Viewers of Digitalk, it's an honor to be with you. And in Kenya right now, the mood is mixed. Those that are the camp Kwanza are jubilating, and they are Azimio la Umoja camp not so jubilating and mixed. But this is what politics and democracy brings. So let's see. Of course, earlier on, there were tensions, and we feared after doing all the hard work and putting up and keeping a pedestal of transparency, will the IEBC bottle it? Because from 3 o'clock, we've been waiting for the result to be announced. But finally, even when there is bit within the commission, the chairperson has reigned supreme and they announced the result. So we're happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muguzi. And of course, before I cross back to the colleagues in the studios, when the chairperson for the IEBC was making his speech prior to reading out the results, he did mention something that it has been a task amidst intimidation, harassments, and a lot. That's not a very, very light statement. And then we also, just a few minutes to that same moment, we saw 4 members of the commission, including the vice chairperson of the IEBC. That's Ms. Julian Charera. She was with other members, Irene Masiti, Justus Nyangaya, and then Francis Wanderi. They held a press conference at Serena Hotel, and they were trying to alert the nation that the results that are yet to be read out, they disassociate themselves from that. What does this mean, Mr. Muguzi?
Democracy-loving citizen or individual. This was not a good moment, because to have a split within the commission and have the majority of the commissioners, because 4 out of 7, that's the majority coming up, because it would have been good enough for it to be a minority report, but for the majority of commission come out and disassociate themselves, exception of the result that was going to be, that was not good for democracy. It, of course, then pushed Kenyans and the other observers here into suspicion as to where this is going to end up. Towards the tensions were already high, not announced results for days. People kept waiting. Was coming round of violence, post-election violence. This was not a good moment, and so. But maybe we could have the chairperson for standing firm, that of Kenya. Let this result be put out, and I hope it will happen. And of course, one of the things we are wondering was, you see, from the day, from the first day of the election, when the forms, the 4As were posted to the portal, and when the IEBC opened up the platform, the public platform for everybody to see, as were opened, we thought that the numbers were there, and therefore to think about for anybody to think with any results, the numbers were all clear, and quite a number of media organizations, BBC, were actually kept tallying. So thank God that finally the chairperson, regardless of the majority of the nation taking exception of what he was going to announce, stood tall and declared the results. And I hope can now forward, because you see the country bigger, and if anybody has evidence that the results has been declared is not then of course they have all the rights to go to court and petition the result.
Muguzi, we'll be getting back to you. Well, I want to start with Mr. Osinde. You've heard Mr. Muguzi. Mr. Muguzi is in Kenya. He is there on a mission. He's one of the observers. And as the National Consultative Forum, the forum that you do speak for, this is a very, very important process that you would really interest yourselves in, even seeing how it's being managed. As the National Consultative Forum, what do you make of the events as they have been happening in Kenya?
Yeah, thank you.
Because you directly fall under the Electoral Commission of Uganda.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to, first of all, thank Ndugu Henry for being in Kenya observing this election. And we are directly under Electoral Commission in Uganda. So this election in the South African region touches us political parties, the other way or the other. But that being said and done, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Kenyans upon the process that we've been through. It's not easy to organize elections, and especially emanating from the fact that the previous election where Chebukati was the chair had issues, and this time they even gained the aspect of days. Initially it was about 3 days. This time around it was 7 days before the results are declared. But I've been seeing a process of transparency in terms of the IEBC making anybody, and the word is anybody, who had interest to access the portal. Anybody would access, and anybody would tally. But I get disturbed as NCF when on Saturday night there were aspects of threats to violence before even today. This thing did not begin today. There were presidential agents who, in one way or the other, raised up issues, and there was a scuffle past midnight on Saturday night. And the security walked in, the JSU walked in and cooled the tension. Today, just hardly 10 minutes before the results are released, 4 commissioners, there was a scuffle this time now,
at
dividing.
Bomas? Yes.
Yeah, at Bomas. There was a scuffle at Bomas, but the commissioners had disagreed with the chair. And in that disagreement, the vice chair is part of the group that walked away. That's not so light. We only pray that the situation from now and then calms. But all said and done, you would see that the process was rather transparent. I am not privy to the details on why there was a scuffle on Saturday and why those commissioners walked away today. But you could see Kenyans restrained. You could see the security a little concerned and restrained. They were there, but they tried to do all they could. As the National Consultative Forum, we have learned a lot. We also saw in the declarations of members of parliament.
How did you learn when you didn't go on ground?
I was following because we had colleagues who were supposed to go with. You were actually part of the group that was supposed to go to observe elections in Kenya. But National Consultative Forum delayed to process funds. Otherwise, you were in the team that was supposed to be going there, and that's how we missed out. And as a result of that, Henry Muguzi, the one we have talked to, and others who had the arrangements from other organizations, we kept in touch and we have been sharing proceedings. But what was happening was that as National Consultative Forum, we saw so many political parties winning seats of members of parliament. You could see Wiper, you could see other political parties, quite a number of them, not necessarily
the major ones.
Not the major ones only. And to me, that is very important because we come from National Consultative Forum. You'll find that they were scattered all over Uganda. Jubilee could win, Wiper could win, the other could win.
Even Kanu won.
Even Kanu. So to me, as the National Consultative Forum, a forum that brings together registered political parties, we have drawn lessons of how we need to run our political parties, such that we are not yet privy to the results in terms of the structures downwards in the local government. But you could see that there is a representative structure right from the top, what is going down, thereby strengthening what we call multi-party dispensation.
Thank you so much, Bwana Osinde. Well, I want to go to Ndug Moses Magoola. Yes, previously, you've been part of the election observers in Kenya. It's unfortunate this time you did not go there for whatever reasons, I don't know. And looking at the previous electoral processes in Kenya and the very, very latest election, how would you describe that situation? The current, and then do a comparison with the previous elections.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I answer your question, I would like to give background to this whole contest. This election has been a transition election. The country is moving from one president to another president. So it has been a very highly contested race. And it has had its basically unique kind of features with the sitting president supporting an opposition figure, you get, which is also another kind of untraditional kind of
it's rare
practice that incumbents go for the people they were their rivals.
Yep.
So the nature of this election has been very, very, very unique. It was an election which has been run after a previously nullified election. Yeah. So you can see there are so many peculiarities around this election. And I'm not surprised by the stakes, which were really very, very high. Because when you see the vice president, who was just so close to the president, I'm sure when they were still friends, they must have had kind of pacts,
a projection
on how the whole
transition,
the whole course was going to be.
Yes.
So it has been a unique contest, and therefore having the outcome as we've seen it still surprises many. The other unique feature is that the opinion polls, surprisingly, were giving a 7% kind of lead to the opposition coalition. So many people are still really getting it hard to get to the terms on what has unfolded. Well, to compare it with the previous elections, I will say that, and agree with my colleague, that the degree of transparency and accountability, I think in this election has been slightly much more vivid compared to the previous elections. But the controversy surrounding the behavior of commissioners has remained the same. In the last election, there were resignations actually from the commission. 3 of the
Yes.
commissioners resigned after
Uhuru was declared.
before he was declared. One of them ran out of the country, went to the US.
There was a lady, yes.
A lady ran to the US. Then after, 3 of them resigned after the re-election, the rerun. So you can draw parallels and similarities and see there's some connections. Then there was violence in some parts, especially the western part of the country and some areas in Nairobi, the Kibra areas, the strongholds of Raila Odinga. We haven't seen violence this time round. There are a lot of celebrations. Then they could be observed in the Gema region, Kikuyu, Embu, and the Meru region, and the Rift Valley, which is mainly Kalenjin. So that again also explains a duopoly, a monopoly of Kenyan politics by those 2 communities. And we are seeing it again manifesting in this. So there has been that continuation of monopoly of those 2 communities. The Kalenjins and the Kikuyus monopolizing the politics of Kenya.
But this time the Chikuyus didn't take a very stronger position in the election.
They were the kingmakers, if you may really look out at how the numbers played. Because if we are to go by those results that have come out, the margins from the Gema region, the Kikuyu nation, Gema region is like that Kikuyu, Meru, and Embu region, and Meru. You could see the numbers, the margins by which Ruto won there was very huge. And I'm sure it really contributed a lot in making the gap so unsurmountable. So what does that say now when you look at the events leading up to the declaration of the winner? The resignations are going to really kind of dent the credibility of the outcome, most likely. But that is for the courts to decide if the aggrieved party chooses to go to the courts of law.
If indeed it's aggrieved.
Yes, but I foresee
a legal battle.
recourse to the courts of justice and to challenge this ruling, this declaration, which perhaps is poised to get us into a most probable kind of rerun if the results are nullified by the way things are playing out. One last thing I want to say also, you have seen the election has attracted a lot of attention. Not only from
Beyond
within,
Kenya,
in the region, Africa, and
globally,
and the world. Yes, I think that point is important to share with the audience. Kenya plays a very significant geopolitical role in this region when it comes to international politics.
Yeah, okay.
Kenya is the diplomatic capital of the region of East and Central and Horn of Africa. That's why you see the UN is there, many diplomatic missions are there. So for there to be regional stability and peace, I mean, Kenya is the anchor state, and the people will look at Kenya as one of the nations that need to be stable at all times. So an election in Kenya is a concern to all of us in these regions. Not only that, even when it comes to our matters in the region, the East African community and these other intergovernmental organizations, they are all centered there. So it is imperative that Kenya is a peaceful country, so that things to do with the diplomacy and multilateralism continue to go. But even when it comes to regional economic issues, it is the headquarter.
Yeah.
Matters to do with democracy. It has even been termed as the beacon of democracy in our region.
The region, yeah.
So that election really matters to all of us, all the regional actors, those in neighboring countries, people working with international organizations, and all the big, states world over that have missions in that country. So I think we are still trying to see now what next from our colleagues across the border, and see whether that country, that anchor state, will remain stable in the region.
Well, thank you so much, Moses. And for our viewers, this is the Hotline Show. We're trying to deeply looking into the Kenyan polls, and of course draw some lessons from there. Ndugu Osinde talked about the smaller parties, the smaller in courts, the smaller parties that have also made it. Like, I want to take you through, like, for the Senate, the UDA, this is the United Democratic Alliance, this is for Ruto, and they have 18 seats. And then the ODM, the Orange Democratic Movement, this is for Raila Odinga. They have 12 seats at the Senate. And then the JP party, Jubilee Party, they have 3 seats.
Jubilee is 35.
Jubilee, 3 at the Senate level.
No, at the Senate.
No, at the Senate level.
At the Senate level, yeah, there are 3. Then the Wiper Party, those ones, they have, their symbol is similar to that of the NUP here. Yeah. They also have, they have 2 seats. And then the UDM, those ones, they have 2 seats. Then you have the NRA, they have 1 seat. And of course, 2 members are female, and then 36 male. Then when we go to the National Assembly, the UDE, that's for William Ruto, they have 63 seats. And then the Orange, the ODM, for Raila Odinga, they have 54 seats. And the Jubilee Party is for Uhuru Kenyatta, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Jubilee Party, they have 11 seats. And then the Wiper Party, they have 10 seats. Then the ANC of Kenya, they have 7 seats. And independent.
Yeah, there's independent.
I think the last I heard, that list, I think, has been updated.
Okay.
Yeah, that list has been updated. UDA has now over 101.
UDA?
Yes. ODM has 88. Jubilee has 35. Wiper 13. Which other ones? Ford Kenya has 6, and the ANC has 6, and then the rest will follow. So okay. It has been updated.
Well, that's how it's happening in Kenya, and I think there is a lot to learn. When you go to the National Consultaive Forum, a forum that has 26 registered political parties. Absolutely. These are the registered parties we have in Uganda. Yeah. But out of the 26 political parties, you find that we have not more than 10 of the very active political parties. And one would ask, where are the rest of these other parties?
Absolutely.
The activist parties, the UFM parties, there are so many of them. And one would ask. Now, Kenya is trying to, but much as Kenya is also having these parties coming up, they have many political parties. They're actually close to 100, if not more than 100, the political parties in Kenya. So as the NCF, in this, if you look at this, that even the parties one would assume to be very small, they have actually struggled and they have representatives. What lessons do you learn there? What's that has been done so much differently that these smaller parties have been given a platform to also at least to come up with members to be, at the 2 parliaments in Kenya, the 2 houses?
That's very key for us as a National Consultative Forum. And I wish to draw the attention of members that if you see parties like Jubilee and Ford Kenya and Wiper and UDA, there are other parties that have local government structures like the Labour Party, DP. They couldn't make it to the Senate, but they are still very active. It is only these ones who have made having a senator and a National Assembly. But that does not mean that the other parties are not holding down to the structures down, which is very different from here. You will find that here, a few, or thereby 6 or 7 or 10, are the only ones who can afford even to have a councillor deep down in the villages. So what lessons do we draw? We draw lessons that in Kenya, although there is that aspect of collusions, mergers, which are strategically intended in securing positions, the members remain on their parties.
Okay.
When they go for coalitions, when they go for negotiations, they go with their registered color identity. They go like Azimio la Umoja has a number of them inside there. But there are coalitions that not necessarily erase the component that there is JEMA. You go as JEMA, negotiate a position, if in that government you are given, but you remain a JEMA in that coalition. For us here, each time you try to pull out, recently I wish to draw your attention to the elections of Gogonya and Sorote. In Gogonya, I mean in Sorote to begin with, because that one came first, FDC and NUB were together. A marriage of convenience. I'm not aware this time around they came together. Is it because NUB didn't have a candidate in Sorote, or they had a candidate but they agreed? But hardly 2 weeks after that agreement, when they came to Gogonya here,
each had a candidate.
Each had a candidate. Now, in Kenya, when you have entered a coalition, there is an MOU. There is an understanding that you come with. And that understanding is very mature and solid. For example, we have these structures of running mates. Yeah? Once you have agreed in a coalition and you have an MOU, if you go through, that status quo is maintained. You cannot just break it until the 5 years have gone. For us here, and if I draw your attention back, we are doing a comparative analysis. If you saw way back in the IPC, there is something which was called the IPC, where the coalition was made by all the opposition political parties. When funds were almost knocking at the doorway, that was the reason for its failure. Now in Kenya, in these coalitions, people put money together. They raise money and put together and say, Azimio, Raila will be the one to stand for us, or Ruto for the other side. And these other parties pull resources together. They even mobilize resources and make sure they strengthen the coalition. Here, there is a problem on who is going to be the signatory. The moment you put that together, I quote vividly, there was some coalition called the TDA. TDA came when Babazi came with very good ideas. Then Besige came and those people came. When they came now to the donors trying to support us, that was the evening when the thing collapsed. Because the donor was willing to give money. And our problem was who is going to be the signatory of the thing. So now you can see that we are myopic. I am part of them. That when you smell money, the principles die. Completely the principles die. That is not good for opposition here. And the same seed has been planted. That's why I'm citing Gogonya and Soroti and IPC and the TDA. So what do we learn from here? We draw a lesson that the politicians in Kenya are people who have made their money. They come wanting to offer alternative government. The opposition in us here are people who are still looking for money. That's why, no, I am very honest. That's why when a donor tries to come and want to give money, I have cited for you, IPS, I have cited this one, I have cited, all fail because of somebody wanting to help. Now, we are preoccupied with the aspect of saying, if I enter there, I'll be the one, the kingmaker. And there is this aspect of belittling others. In Kenya, even if you're a small party with only one representation,
you're respected.
You are respected.
And you're valued.
Yeah, you are valued. There is an MOU to that effect.
Maybe the smaller parties have a bigger number of following.
Yeah. Now,
compared to our powers.
For example, the reason why they value you, there is that silent aspect of regional balancing and tribalism. Where do you come from? When they get to know that Kalonzo Musyoka in his area, he has a following. On the table, as you negotiate,
must they put that into consideration?
They put that into consideration. They say there is
I want to bring in Mr. Muguzi.
Yeah.
I want to bring in Mr. Muguzi. Now that you're talking about the issue of finances, money, and this is the area Mr. Muguzi understands so much and is always interested in knowing who is injecting in so much beyond what is necessary. And Mr. Muguzi, I believe that over 60% of your keen interest in Kenya was basically in that line of finance, election funding in Kenya. Mr. Osinde is telling us here that in Uganda, for the majority of our opposition, they're the people who are still struggling to get money. And in Kenya, the moment you take a decision that you're running for any position, you actually, whether you're with opposition or anywhere, you must be well loaded financially. Previously, there is one member I had on this very show. He was in Kenya, in Mombasa. He's from the New Democratic Party in Kenya. And it's like, in Kenya, if you don't have money, don't waste your time in politics. For the time you've been there, close to a week or even more so, what has been your observation in regards to finance, campaign fundings and all that? Mr. Muguzi.
Much. So I smiling when my brother was trying to draw parallels between political parties in Kenya and parties in Uganda. One thing forgot to the issue of context. I recall that whereas on Uganda returned to multi-party politics in 2006. The truth is that, number one, we did not allow the time of going back to multi-party politics. Political parties were still in abeyance. So we were sleeping. They were not ready to start engaging. Number two, from 2006 until now, we have never practiced multi-party democracy. It has been the movement systems until now. Political party activities are not allowed in the country. Political parties are only permitted to do activity around the party headquarters. This is how it were. And therefore, if not allowed again Act 2, the countryside to utilize your fees and ideology and recruit new members, you cannot fundraise, you cannot operate as a political party. To the contrary, Kenya, because they were able to overcome the KANU influence, and political parties have freedom to mobilize, organize. This is the difference. Now, coming to your question, because you can have politics, political parties cannot function with money. I'm not talking small monies. Political parties need billions in order for them to operate. So in Kenya, of course, quite a number of them have been accessing money. But when I was viewing many of the analysts, but political party leaders, they tell me, and especially journalists, in this very election, where the level of monetary has hit the roof, through the roof, much of the money used was proceeds of corruption. Now, of corruption. Now, they will tell you that the interests are quite high. And what facilitated that is the fact that opposition was able to coalesce into two coalitions. We had two coalitions, and either of them would go into government. And therefore, for a campaigns easier to put there to place their own candidate as opposed to when there are too many candidates. And so the opaqueness that shroud how political parties money. Of course, like it is in Uganda, those that representation access money from the public. But of course, they also bigger funders, then interest higher. And so you would see that it's money that also has a part. I was amazed at the number of helicopters that were flying around. And when I went to ask out the cost of hiring them, I was told that hiring a chop goes for $2,000 per hour. So you would find that the Azimio arrived with a convoy of 7.
Well, Mr. Muguzi, you've been in Kenya for quite a while, and you've observed not only the presidential elections, but even these other elections at the lower levels. How much has money been an influence in these elections in Kenya?
Absolutely. So at our level, you know, so down. Personally, I was in Kakamega, and when it comes candidates, governor, humanitative, and you get to this is where now money exchanges hands, because bigger parties, the candidates, the money goes into administration and the infrastructure down there. Yeah, the real buying and using of voters. We are moving with the exotic of the house, the trading center. The voters gathered and say, and they would line up. There is this particular town we entered, and there was it for MCA, and we arrived. The people lined up, and I was amazed at the level of orderliness of the voters line up, so that they make it candidate to give out. And so Mali has an influence, and we are yet to analyze the details, but in many cases, candidates at our level, at the county, the MCA, the member, those that have been high have gone on to win the election, and of course, that you can't rule out.
Well, we've been seeing such elections taking place, and of course, the issue of money continues to influence decision making, especially here in Uganda. In that, just like when you give an example of voters lining up because they want to have something. Well, does this really translate into an election? Or it is people we eat and then we vote whom we want?
So you got to see the interest people mostly where they object to presidential. Because presidential, they want to make sure that there's none. So they would vote their conscience. But at the lower level, in the county where corrupt is that they want something from them, and so that's where it is. So money influenced mostly the outcome at the county, but at presidential, I think other factors came into play.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Muguzi. I want to cross to Mr. Moses Magoola. You've heard that from Mr. Muguzi. I think money is becoming a very serious issue within the region, in that it drives our elections. Not driving the election to facilitate the process, but to entice the members, to the voters, to vote into, to lure the voters anyway. And this is bad. Now, you're a student of political science, and we have a big challenge of civic education. If you look at the voters in Kenya and voters in Uganda, the truth is the civic levels are very, very low. Ugandans hardly vote issues. They vote out of excitement. Who excites them, wins their votes. And you've been in Kenya for some time. How is it there? Are they civically competent, or they are more so like Ugandans?
My view on that is that the issue of commercialization of politics is an African phenomenon. Politics, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, has been kind of characterized by a lot of bribes, and most people who vie, they don't look at government as a place to go and serve the public. Most of them, it's an opportunity to go and make much more money, and it becomes a cycle, so that they are re-elected and go back just like that. That being a general view, if I may bring it down to the recent Kenyan election, you've heard of the first term of Uhuru being dogged by a lot of corruption scandals and all that, yeah, and a lot of it was being apportioned to the Ruto axis, yeah. It is said that axis accumulated a lot, got a lot of money from the public coffers, and they were kind of going round and giving it back to the people, and that explains how much they have been overwhelmingly supported in their strongholds. So that being the way it was, in Uganda, I think I will not have to even explain much more, because money is a deeply seated problem in our politics. We have used it, and information is there in the public domain that we can all look at. On the question of the electorates and civic competence, how they interpret all this and interpret all the other kind of good practices when it comes to elections and all that, and the civic and their civic competence, you will have to say the Kenyans are operating under a new constitutional dispensation that is a lot more kind of practical compared to our new dispensation of constitutional dispensation. We went multi-party. We got a new constitution. The early days of our constitution were really moving a little bit steadily and making the right strides, but it seems we missed certain steps, and somehow we lost course. The Kenyans seem to be on the right course. They seem to be on the right trajectory, because when you look at compliance to the constitution and a few other major democratic events that have taken place, you look at issues like the nullification of a presidential election. That is, unprecedented. It is historical in its way to have the courts of law nullify a presidential election and people go for a rerun. You can try to bring it here and think how plausible that can be in our context, and you really can't see it becoming a possibility in our context. So it's not only that. When you look at the interaction of the political players with the public, in Kenya it is much more kind of a day-to-day happening compared to us here, where there are so many limitations to political actors to interact with the masses. And it is only through that you are able to trickle down your ideas, that the people can do what? Can be able to to sieve and buy into. When it comes to expression, I mean, look at the media, how it has covered the elections in Kenya. To the extent that some media houses threw about figures that were not even, were contradictory, but they were allowing them to have their coverage go on. Yeah? But in other African countries, that would amount to serious to treason and closure of those media entities.
Yeah.
So that explains at how much trade our neighbors have made. And it's a big lesson to all of us who are in this region. There's a lot we can draw from the manner in which their elections are conducted, the campaigns, how they run. I mean, you really count. There's not been bloodshed in this election. There's not been these unnecessary arrests. So when you juxtapose it with our context, you see there is a lot of work that we can do. But you know, it is one step at a time. Perhaps they're a bit democratically mature and they're way ahead of us, and we could come crawling behind them. But that doesn't give leeway to our leaders to always hold on to practices that are not civic enough and no civic empowering to the masses. In terms of civic education, a lot of work still needs to be done. Again, it goes to the civic organizations and the political parties, the commissions in government that are supposed to do that kind of work. Most of those Kenyan commissions really do a lot of work. They have that rights commission, the ones on graft, the one on cohesion, national cohesion. They really do a lot of work trying to look into matters to do with the civic competence of the people. I will say that you know, Kenya is a divided society. They have a small middle class and the bourgeois, and a very large class of, yes, the Muntu and those ones really, I think those at the apex of the pyramid seem to be kind of also dominating much of the affairs of what goes on. They need to bridge that kind of gap when it comes to to a lot of things, even in economic empowerment, but also civic empowerment. And people are gaining access to resources to acquire education. But I will say they are slightly ahead of us because there is some effort that is constitutional. They tend to be more contractarian. They look at their constitution much more when it comes to public service, and not like us, because we tend to see a lot of arbitrariness in the way our institutions do their work. Some of the institutions are kind of not so present on the ground, but they are also, I think, they are also elbowed from that arena of touching the masses. And that could have its own political dividends for those that are running the administration. Perhaps they do not want that deliberate interaction of the masses and the leaders. So it is much of politics of domination other than politics of cooperation and building coherence.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to add something
Please.
in that direction. Thank you very much, Ndugu Mukasa. Jean, you will appreciate that is a deliberate policy by the executive of Kenya under the three arms of government to pull out what we call devolution. Their strategy is to make sure that they cause those local government structures, empower them, and put funds there. And devolution in itself has caused accountability to the effect that people have to measure you, the governor, what we call the LC5 here, through those developmental structures that you are going to initiate. But it comes from the top executive. It's deliberate, what you would call here as a federal. They would say under devolution, and those are the issues that are trending. Because if you saw in the campaign, there were two issues. The aspect of that representative that has caused development in the community came out, and the aspect of economy, that hustle, the Unga 210. So what brings food on the table and how is development because there is all the package, the strategic package of the strategic plan of the state being given by the executive. And this is coupled with functional institutions. You will find that institutions in Kenya, call it even civil society or government institutions, they are there to an extent that talk about civic education that our constitution gives, the Human Rights Commission and the Voter Education and Electoral Commission. In Kenya, you can even see with the strategic plan, 2 years down the road, actually Ruto started campaigning immediately when he was sworn in as the vice president.
4 years down.
Yeah, 4 years down the road. He did not wait for whatever. And he kept on empowering under devolution. And he kept on injecting funds in those structures which are caused by government. So the top government sets a precedence and says, for us, in 2017, National Consultaive Forum sent 10 delegates. I was head of delegation to observe the election. And we stayed there for 10 days. We also traveled to Ambassador Kenya. We noted with concern that if you talk about rural electrification or name this, if you go down on the ground, you start measuring it from down there and you see accountability in terms of CDF, save for the fact that it was just locked recently. They would give members of parliament CDF and you come and account for what you have done in your community in terms of bursaries, name them. So that is one. Secondly, when you look at compliance, my brother touched that sensitive aspect. In reference to Article 38 of the Kenyan Constitution, and specifically 81, and even if you look at Article 10 of their Constitution, when an institution declares that there was non-compliance with the law in terms of free and fair election, to them, that's a very big aspect. To us here, the argument is that even if we did not comply, the effect was not substantial enough to warrant a rerun.
It was mild.
It was mild. Now, to the contrary, in Kenya,
whatever,
that was a huge thing. Justice David Maraga, based on that aspect of
to annul
the results. There was nothing big of rigging or what, but it was just compliance. The component was real compliance. The IBC did not comply with the set rules, and they had to go back.
Well, we are going to pick it from that very point, and of course, we need to break off shortly for a very, very short break. And then when we return, of course, we'll pick it from there. And then my brother Muguzi will also come in to look at the issue of issue-based politics, their manifestos. Raila Odinga was more of, cost of living, making things affordable things. And then the other man was like, me, I am a hustler, I am for the common man. Maybe this could be another factor that might have led to, to such a decision that was taken by the Kenyans. Well, we are taking a very, very short break, and when we return, the Hotline Show will continue.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Digitalk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
We President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Digitalk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop, and smart TVs. As we are streaming live on our social media platforms, on the road and on the go. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
How you beautiful Ugandans, it's your girl Digitalk. Welcome to the fancy floor. Who doesn't see my hair, guys? I am super glamorous. Remember, this is the only show where we're going to be talking about fashion.
Please, where are you think? Teaching.
What has been confusing you about fashion? Sorry, you said I should not smile. For all the information about fashion, maintenance of body shape.
I can wear bling bling when I'm going out. So you can wear bling bling going out or any occasion.
We shall be doing all this in the fancy floor. Remember, it airs every Thursday right from 8:30 to 9 with your girl Teddy Tenjo. It is the fancy floor.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Well, it's the Hotline Show, and I welcome you back from that short break. Well, we have to continue with the discussion. I want to immediately bring in Mr. Muguzi. We need to look at the issues that might have triggered the Kenyans to vote the way or to make a decision the way they have. When you look at the campaign manifesto for Ruto, who is now the president-elect, he was more of siding with the the wananchi, those. Moses here talked about the classes within the Kenyan population, the high end and the low, Omuntua Wansia, as we always call them here. And you see that Ruto, his campaign has been so much sided to that community, the underprivileged community, calling himself a hustler. And we all know that one time Ruto was a hawker in Nairobi, in different cities in Kenya. He was on the streets. And so he is this young man who rose from those ranks, from being a street vendor, then he became a minister for agriculture, and he has been going through this. And then for Raila Odinga, he has also been talking about coming up with that package of $51 per family for the underprivileged. And then he also talks about increasing the agriculture budget. If you remember the Maputo Convention, that says that at least in each member state, you must commit at least 10% of your national budget. And Kenya's budget has been, agriculture budget has been around 23%. And Ruto says, Odinga used to tell them that if I become the president, I'll make sure that the budget goes to around 27% of the budget. And, so what could have been the issues that have really made the Kenyans to decide the way they have decided?
Well, thank you very much. And I liked it earlier when Moses spoke about the peculiarity of this election. When I arrived here 15 days ago, the question was, who is the opposition candidate, who is incumbent? Because if you have the sitting president in cohorts with the Azimio Umoja candidate, and then you have the deputy president, then you cannot tell who is opposition, who is incumbent. But that said, you would see the weight of the incumbent president, Uhuru Kenyatta, being thrown behind the Azimio candidate. One of the things that amazed me was when he went to the Kikuyu ethnic group and chose to speak in Kikuyu. So here you have a national president, but he's speaking Kikuyu, but there is national TV and so on. And then he goes around to, I think, to Trans Nzoia, and he's donating kind of a bailout of government, I think for Nzoia Sugar. And then as he's handing out the donation, he's saying, remember Muguzi. And so these things, and then you would hear campaign talk. You've spoken about the hustler mantra. And then, of course, then you have this who's saying the status quo, then we maintain. So you ask your question, what then determined the outcome? Now, when you look at the outcome, the numbers as it were, you get to see one of the things that is out is that the Kikuyu defied on Uhuru Kenyatta, because he asked them to vote for Raila, and they have overwhelmingly voted for Ruto. Now, of course, the Chikuyus and the Kalenjins are not bedfellows, have never been bedfellows, but that unholy alliance, which had seen Uhuru and go through earlier on, seems to have dissipated. So you get to see that there is that point. But also, I spoke to Kenyans, and they would tell you that the one issue of corruption and accountability, and they're looking at these two candidates, frontline candidates, and they're saying all of them look more of the same. And so it was not clear who should be voted. But also you would tell that many of them were in favor of breaking away from the syndrome of family politics. The Uhuru family, Odinga family, they wanted to break away from that. And so many of them identified with the right. And now the other thing interesting, I looked at the demographics of the register and discovered that about 60% voter aged 35 and above. The young people were about 39%. So you got to see that this biggest population is a population that has seen it all. There is going to be no emotions attached. The other thing I think I should point out that could have played in favor of this is that you would see now that Kenyans are beginning to kind of to overcome politics of ethnicity, because if the Kikuyus are voting for the Kalenjin, then you get to see they've started a journey perhaps of overcoming that ethnic politics. And therefore there are quite a number of factors that play, but I think also the fact that Uhuru Kenyatta did that handshake without necessarily consulting with the elders with whom he had gone and had given him a nod for him to get into alliance with Ruto. And then because at the time he was saying that I'm taking 10 years and he will take 10, and then turns around without consulting, and then he's doing this handshake. Many of them were not happy. And I think they wanted to make a statement to Uhuru, telling him that, look here, yes, you are one of our own, you are our own, we know you, but let us decide, not you tell us. So these are some we are seeing, but I think it's a democracy that is beginning to evolve. I think there are many lessons we can draw as
Mr. Muguzi,
in Uganda, Tanzania, but also maybe Rwanda, because I think until the dominant party, the party that has been in power for a long time and fused itself with the state, like we saw Kanu, gets into opposition, you are about to see real democracy taking place. Because I was at the freedom that was enjoyed by political parties during these campaigns, the security forces were there to facilitate, not to obstruct, interfere. So these are lessons I think we need to take. Of course, that maturity is coming in. Issue-based politics are about it. Let's rise or transcend over and above a thin politics and get to look at the issues and get to see who can deliver. And I hope they will not live to regret what they have, the decision they have made. Back to your brother.
Thank you. You've talked about the Kikuyu and now, being defiant of what their son, Uhuru Kenyatta, told them to do, and they overwhelmingly voted for the Kalenjin. But on Sunday, we saw the Kikuyu elder, the council, the Kikuyu Council of Elders chairperson, that is Mr. Wachira Kiago, who came up and he actually addressed the press, and he was like, they're already conceding defeat if in case it so happens that they lose the election. Does this mean that this was something they were giving us for the public, like public relations, but inside them they did contrary? Because this gentleman, the chairperson for the Council of Elders for the Kikuyu, he was like that we agreed as the Kikuyu, we are supporting Raila Odinga. But what could have happened along the way that they did not vote for Odinga, than instead went for Kalenjin? And then the chairperson on Sunday himself came up saying that conceding defeat actually before even results are announced. What does this mean?
So I saw the numbers that were coming in from the Mount Kenya region, Nyeri, Kakaunt, and so on. The Kikuyus around me, because you would see that Ruto is polling 200 in 200,000 votes in 200,000 and Raila 1,000. That's a huge margin. So I asked them what happened here. They said, look, we just did not want Uhuru to tell us what to do. First of all, he came to us, said that 10 years for him, 10 years for Ruto. Now suddenly he's changing opinion and changing cards and his handshake. He wants us to suddenly. They said, we want to tell him, we also have some brains. We'll choose who we want to choose. And for now, we want, but also I think the other factor is that suspicion between the Kikuyus and the Jaluze, the North seems to still be there. Quite a number of Kikuyus don't feel why they should really be cohorts with the Jaluos. And so whatever he said, the elder, the chairperson of the elders of the Kikuyu, and I think he lied because the number tell a different story.
Well, we've heard that from Mr. Muguzi, who is in Nairobi, in Kakamega. Well, I want to cross to Mr. Osinde, and of course I will also be reading through some comments, the comments that are coming through online, and I will also be opening up lines in the next 20 minutes. I'll be opening up lines for those who would wish to make calls and be part of the conversation. Mr. Osinde, let's talk about, I'm taking you to the same issue of issue-based leadership, issue-based politics. How much did the manifestos, the issues being raised by the candidates in Kenya, contribute to what happened, to what we have arrived at today? Because Raila was talking much about, improving people's the standards of living. He also promised I'm forgetting the name, he termed it, to give $51 to over 2 million Kenyans, like those, the underprivileged, communities, and of course, fighting corruption, those usual things. And then for the other side, the hustler was also talking about employment. How much did these such issues contribute to the elections?
Yeah, thank you very much. It was fortunate and also unfortunate that when the campaigns were flagged off, the aspect of economy, Wunga, was an issue at Kenya. And that affected mostly the hustlers. When the government deliberately decided to reduce the price of Wunga, and
but that has been scrapped off.
Yeah, now
I think 2 days back.
Yeah, Ruto took advantage of that and said, you cannot wait for this for all this long, and towards the election, you draw a deal with Raila that you are going to scrap. Yet the hustler remains a hustler, and that aspect of Azimio was downplayed. But when you look at the aspect of issue-based politics, I told you that the power of devolution zeroed down on who has done what, and Ruto had begun 4 years before. He would meet a group of border borders, empowers them at that level. He meets a group of these, empowers them at that level, and he associated himself with the hustlers and left the other class of the historicals and came down. Now, statistically, that's why around Kiambu, those hustlers within the city town, that's why even the member of parliament for Nairobi city, where the component of Kibera and the rest are there are so many hustlers there. Koinange.
So this means Ruto identified himself so closely with the hustlers.
He identified himself with the hustlers, and there are quite a number. These other Wazee who wanted Raila were guys who had retired, and the issue was that...
The pensioners.
The issue was that we can't leave Kenya in the hands of chokoras. Now, whether that augured well with the hustler, it actually annoyed the hustler that the one who stands for us as a fellow hustler, you are calling him corrupt.
Chokora. Maybe for our listeners, our viewers, Chokora is like a street kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chokoras demonstrated that if there is one who identifies with us,
we shall
associate
with that one.
And that was a big turning point, because if you look at all the towns and name them, you will see that the bourgeoisies in the Mount Kenya region, who were commanding authority, ignored the hustlers. Like that chairman of the whatever. The Mount Kenya region, whatever, bringing together Muranga, Meru, and Nyeri, all that structure bringing them together. They are rich men. But they forgot that these hustlers
They exist.
They exist, and a reasonable number. To their surprise, the hustlers were quite many compared to the pensioners. And this is why, in my view, Ruto did not ignore these ordinary citizens. He associated with them, and he said in a few of my friends in Kenya that those dirty chokoras in town, whenever Ruto would pass, there's a place where they would call them, and around this season, they were meeting in some restaurant and they take some second-hand clothes that gives them before election. So the issue of money, which you mentioned, still plays a very big role, not only for bribing, but facilitating campaign. My brother Henry was telling you about choppers. It is the order of the day to see choppers fly. Here we have only one, maybe for the president. But there, candidates who are looking for as small as a governorial position, they fly choppers in the meetings. They reinforce these other presidential candidates with the choppers. A lot of money is put in facilitating the campaign process, not even bribing. By the time elections voting comes, a lot of money goes down into preparations and facilitation. Genuine money. To an extent that when the bourgeoisies bring together with the deep state those people who control, you'll also find that whereas Ruto and the Uhuru were controlling the deep state, the vice president remained also with some connections in the deep state. So it cannot be that the vice president did not have connections in the deep state.
So, picking it from that, this gentleman, Ruto, was so strategic in this whole process.
I want to believe that he knew what he was doing, and he also knew the capacity of Ruto. But we are yet to...
Raila, the capacity of Raila.
The capacity of Raila. But what I'm talking about, the aspect of the deep state, emanates from the statement Chibukati made, that amidst threats and intimidation. You rightly pointed out, that's not a light statement. Now, in the same circumstance, when you take on the four commissioners, including the vice president, throwing themselves out and saying, no, we can't be party to that, that's not a light statement.
And it's also alleged that Mama Ngina also made a statement saying that usitupe nchi yetu kwa chokoras.
Yeah.
We should not...
So we are going yet in the next, by Friday, the direction should be clear that whereas they have announced these elections in Kenya, but whether or not that in itself is the beginning of peace in Kenya might be another joke.
Thank you so much. The news coming in indicate, okay, according to Martha Karua's Twitter handle, she says it's not over till it's over.
Yeah.
So we're also having information unconfirmed, but we are yet to confirm that Raila Odinga has filed an application, not yet confirmed, application to stop William Ruto from taking oath. So it means there is, like Moses, you anticipated, this must be coming to reality. Well, I want to come to you, Moses. It seems you have a strong rejoinder to this.
Yes,
I wanted to switch you to the...
I want to just buttress a few points related to his submission and my brother, Muguzi. In Kenya, there has been something called the Raila phobia. And that is a kind of thinking that has always existed in communities that have feared Raila for a long time, especially in the Kikuyu nation. And that phobia has its origins in a historical feud between his father, Jaramogi, Oginga Odinga, and the Kenyatta family, the Kenyatta senior. They disagreed, I think, when they were both in government in 1966.
When the other one was the vice president?
Yes, when he was the vice president. So they couldn't get along, and Jaramogi walked out. And
he went to exile.
he just walked out of government. He resigned over, I think, ideological differences. And that time, you know, the world was divided between during the Cold War times. Those who were for the East and the West. There was communism and capitalism. So it is believed Uhuru's father was capitalist. And that is the trajectory Kenya took up to now. It is viewed as a capitalist nation. And that fear has always been there, that Jaramogi wanted to turn Kenya into a communist state. So that is why explains the problems he had then. And when the son came with a lot of fire and also his views, Raila, the young man, was also carrying a lot of sentiments. And his late son was called Fidel, named after Fidel Castro, yes, who was communist. So you could see where, ideologically, where the phobia originates from. Yeah. But also, the phobia was, I think, given a lot of heat, oxygen by the politicians of that time, Uhuru's father, who took another kind of direction of smearing that family as, you know, as the bad people who wanted to take power away from the Kikuyus and all that. And the Kikuyus, he set up the entire Kikuyu community against the Jaluos. So from that time, those people have pulled ropes, and it is also believed that there is when he was, the father of Uhuru was hit in Kisumu. And
by the Jaluos.
By the Jaluos, they attempted, I think, an assassination on him. Yes. There, and then it turned blood, and many Jaluos were killed in those protests. So from that time, that thing has been historical. Then came the Moi era. There was the 1982 coup attempt of Moi when he was in power. Again, they pointed at Raila Odinga as one of the masterminds of that coup attempt. He was arrested for 8 years. Yeah, without trial, he was just inside until he escaped. He went through Uganda, he even traveled to Norway with a Ugandan passport. So you can see how now that the conflict with Moi turned into a Kalenjin Luo conflict, because in Kenya politics is highly tribal, and it is still tribal up to now. It is still explained by how they have voted. The patterns you've seen. You could see the Kambas voting behind their man, Kalonzo. At the coast, Joho and his Muslim brothers, voted for Raila, because that bloc, the politics is tribal, regional, and it is managed by kingpins. So that Raila phobia has played a lot of part in this, in what we have seen. I will also, I think, add on to what they shared on the hustler narrative. That hustler narrative is it was just created to hoodwink people, in my view. That, you see, politics of Kenya has had big families at the center. The Moi, Jaramogi, those names, and Kenyatta, Kibaki, all those families, they have been so
customized to those
dominating of the politics in that country. So Ruto, being this very shrewd and also populist, he's populist in his politics. Because the same playbook he's applied at the national stage, he already applied in the Rift Valley in 2007.
With the kingship or kingpin. And
that kingpin, Moi was the kingpin of the Kalenjin politics. He was always observed by the elders. But he went through the back door and dethroned him. Essentially, with Kenyan politics, one of the Moi kids would have become the kingpin with the nature of with the Kenyan politics. Essentially, it would have been Gideon. But this man after the 2002 elections, somehow he played his cards. He was an MP and I think mobilized, and he went against Moi in joining Kibaki and Uhuru in their
coalition,
in their outfit. Yes, in their coalition. So he went against Moi, and all Kalenjins followed him when he went with Raila Odinga. So he went with Raila Odinga and somehow dethroned the Moi factor in the Rift Valley politics. So it is the same way, and I'm sure these people were not aware of what he was scheming when he was with them. They thought he couldn't play the same card, but his nature of going against your boss, going behind him, and he somehow succeeds by smearing your leader before the people.
Blackmail.
He goes through blackmail, and he did it successfully, and somehow he defied his boss when it came to the decision he took to team up with Raila Odinga in his second term, and he's formed that party quickly when they were still in government, a show of defiance, and they campaigned all through the term. This second term, they are doing nothing else. They were just loitering, going every weekend to different community gatherings, church, where markets and what. And in Kenya, there is freedom of expression. So these people, I think, somehow underestimated him. So they had this hustler narrative. He rode on that. He identified himself with a common man, although he's also a bourgeois in his in his own state. So I think it was a form of incitement of the poor, and you know, those people at the base of the pyramid are
when
the
you give them hope, they
are the majority. So he played around the minds of the most vulnerable, and they bought into the idea through giving handouts, a lot of handouts that they took, and somehow it was exchanged with the votes you're seeing. He did that a lot in the first term, because every weekend he was in Mount Kenya region. Every weekend he was in Mount Kenya region. And the first time it is believed they shared the government with Uhuru in the middle. That was part of the pact. So for him, I think he took the direction of consolidating power when he got in. He made sure that he built the right
he takes advantage of
connections and links. So the second term was more of coming with his hustler narrative, riding on that, taking advantage of the vulnerability of the people, populism, and it has somehow added up, and this is what we see, and most likely is going to become president, pending the court, whatever the direction of recourse is taken. But when I am to assess this man in terms of his political ideas, I find it so difficult to locate him, whether he's on the right or on the left. But the ideas to me appear to be on the left, and is most likely going to cause serious political and economic disruption
within the region,
within the country, if he's going to implement those ideas he's talking about. That hustler narrative of giving money to, he calls them mamambogas, those women of Vidala, and the boda bodas and all that. I mean, the rate at which he was applying this, you could say, is going to destabilize a lot of the service sector. And when you look at banking, when you talk of giving money interest-free and all that, the banks were originally giving money out. But he's talking of giving it out to these groups. And the interest-free. And they will not now, it means they will not be going to banks, they will be going to government to get money. And yet, when it comes to the politics the way we know it, and Kenya being a capitalist state, that is a laissez-faire. Yeah. You cannot do that, because government will be having a lot of hold on the affairs of the people, and the market will be affected so much. So at the end of the day, these ideas, perhaps if the people have not been hoodwinked, maybe it will work, but I see a serious, like, total disruption and turning everything upside down, which is going to cause a lot of socio-political instability if he goes by his campaign mantras. So that's where they are, and the ideas together with that of Raila when it comes to issue-based politics, I think they're a bit similar, although I think both of the camps were just using these as campaign narratives just to win the votes. Raila was talking of Baba Care when it comes to health. He was talking about free education for all,
and health,
and the 6,000 Kenyan shillings for the most indigent and the impoverished, the poorest of the poor. When you are to weigh the two, you could look at those two ideas and you're like, okay, maybe these ideas are a bit more practical compared to the hustler narratives. Because even when it comes to giving money to the poor, what confidence do you have in those poor to really manage that money properly and it is effectively, invested and it brings returns on investment? So the country is in a very very
quagmire
and clear. The path ahead is unclear, and they really have a lot to do when it comes to really the ideological direction it is going to take. And the Kenyans must be braced for, when you look at those manifestos, and now that the man has been declared, the issues, I mean the ideas that the man wants to impose on the country may backfire. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I need to go to Mr. Muguzi. Now that the hustler is the president-elect, regardless of what will come out of the legal battle, which is yet to happen, if indeed it will. And what does the election of the hustler mean to a common man in Kenya, and of course, to the entire region? Because many politicians, especially those on the opposition, they have been so much into the Raila Odinga camp. You even remember, who is this gentleman who is in this Kenyan, who castigated Kyagulanyi and Besigye for being Miguna. He said this is being hypocritical to see people who already have sides, to be part of the observers. They cannot be objective at whatever point because they already have a side and everyone knows that. So what does the election of this 55-year-old man who has beaten his president, hands down, and the 5 times presidential aspirant, what does it really mean to a common man in Kenya and of course the entire region?
Of course, thank you for that question. Immediately the results were announced, I was in a discussion with Kenyans from Kikuyu ethnic group, and a conversation that they have a fear that Ruto will be speaking with Raila and Uhuru and so on, because these two, when it comes to common economic interests, it is very easy for them to find common ground. But that said, I think election provides a paradigm shift from the politics of families, as the mother mentioned there, because for time, families, and therefore now you have this that from the ashes rising up. Of course, also reassures the rest of the political people, with the politicians that would want to rise through the ranks. Now, having been come from the a an anonymous family to rise to the levels he has do, and with the hustle mantra, you are going to expect him to align more, because I'm sure he has now mastered the politics of campaigning. So I'm sure already at the back of his mind, in hindsight, he's already looking at the next election. And therefore, you are looking at Ruto that is going to be his level best, sure that he can be seen to be walking the talk, that he demonstrated and did that his mantra of hustler is anything to go by. So you would see, you would expect the ordinary people, the wananchi, benefiting more. Policies that attended more towards addressing the problems of the wananchi, because especially food prices, living conditions, housing, and so on. That we expect to see. So but on the other hand, don't rule out the fact that there could be discussion. I do know that as the campaigns were ongoing, we were already hearing reports that each of the two political coalitions was collecting evidence along the way. So along the way, already, even when they were saying we will, they already had as plan B running, and of course trust the Kenyans, because they've been litigating almost everything. You remember, even on voting day, court was still coming up with pronouncements on whether or not to use the register and so on. So that will happen, and it remains to be seen. But for me, I'm very happy with the lessons we are learning from the Kenya election, because especially when it comes to the independence of the judiciary, and it comes to somebody rising from the ashes, and given the right democratic conditions that allow freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, that everybody can rise through. I think it's good for friends, and let's see, look forward to see that we do not see a handshake like it's been with Uhuru, but somebody that lives to demonstrate that that the mantra of hustler is anything to go by.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muguzi. And well, maybe I should. Oh, someone wants to throw some more information. Please do.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something little on the very good narrative Moses added. That the manipulation.
I thought the information was going to Mr. Muguzi. Because I still wanted to hear from him before you come in.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Muguzi, I wanted to have a comparison. Or you look when we talk about commercialization of politics, and you have always released the reports here, showing like which campaign was so much expensive compared to what an ordinary member of parliament, this one injected this at this point, and we need a comparison of that in Kenya, looking at the previous elections, and then see how is the trend going. Is it going down? Is it going up? And what do you have to do as persons who are within that line to see that you're so much focused on reducing commercialization of politics within our region?
Yeah, so the difference I have seen in Kenya in campaign spending, in comparison with what happens in Uganda, is that what we have, for example, the 2021 generation in Uganda, that candidates channeled most of their spending to would induce voters. You would see them investing more in community services, open roads, buy ambulances, extend the supply lines for water, electricity, pay school fees, that thing. So, and they did not invest as much in campaign administration. Here, you would see candidates investing massively in administration. For a candidate to decide to be using a chopper to fly from campaign event to the next. That alone attracting attention. The kinds of fleets, the vehicles they were using, I think in Kenya, kind of fashionable. That for any politician worth the name, you must have as part of your convoy this powerful SUV that would attract attention, and then of course the convoys as well. So that mix of investing massively in campaign administration, campaign publicity, plus the inducing of voters makes the Kenyan election far more expensive. Unfortunately, here there was no initiative by any civil society to kind of track and quantify how much in real terms went into the election. But I can't tell you that the level of monetization and commercialization of electoral politics in Kenya is much higher than in Uganda.
Do they have a legal framework in that regard to maybe to check them?
I beg your pardon?
Do they have some legal framework in place to check such excesses of campaign spending?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and how would I have forgotten to mention that? So in 2013, there was a very progressive law. It's called the Election Campaign Finance Act that was enacted. But you remember that in the previous election, there was a conspiracy within Parliament to render that law on the previous elections. Now, on these ones, IEBC had gone ahead and developed very detailed regulations that specify ceilings and required the candidates to disclose the sources of campaign money and to report on spending and many other standard aspects that would kind of curb commercialization of politics. But of course, again, the same parliament colluded by on the argument that IEBC in developing those regulations did not consult widely. Even when a group of civil society organizations, I think Katiba Institute and AfriCog had went to court. The court had a ruling that IEBC did not have to consult Parliament on development of those regulations, and that Parliament does not have powers to approve or disapprove that IEBC can go ahead and enforce it. I think it's a little too late. So we have had an election without any legal framework to regulate the monies that are used in campaigns. We are only hoping that the Parliament that comes on board will not follow through the footsteps of the previous parliaments that have rendered that progressive law inapplicable.
Thank you so much. Bwana Osinde, you had something burning.
Yeah, I had something small.
Yes.
To, what Moses raised. You see, invisible hands in propaganda in Kenya politics tail way back from where Moses stated. However, what I wanted to put clear is that this also had a hand of the imperialist during the Moi and the Odinga aspect, which pointed out even to the death of Odinga. But as we speak now, that Raila phobia is a creation of propaganda. The truth is that the ideology of the late Odinga, and even this one, was to the effect of empowering the local person. To an extent that when the imperialists came and they wanted Odinga to be part of the scheme that was about to disorganize Kenyatta, the late Odinga refused and said, I cannot just come and take over a seat like that. But there was an invisible hand that was causing him, that discal engine manipulated later, and to cause an impression as if the Kikuyu are against these people. Now, that featured in this election, as Moses mentioned. But the truth is that the genesis of the handshake, the mother of Uhuru, reminded Uhuru of Raila being an elder brother and that Kenya would be safer with Raila. To strengthen the aspect that if the Jaluos were that bad, then Oginga Odinga should have taken that position that the imperialists were bringing. But he was a Jaluo and he respected that he didn't want to antagonize the Kikuyus. And he left that. He said, no, I didn't look for any position to disorganize my brother, no. And that's the trend Raila has been telling, that we, as the Jaluos, from the word go, we have never had anything. Now, the propagandists and the hustlers would have they could have traded on that to paint a picture to the contrary.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Moses, I think this must be my last question from you. You look at the media in Kenya, each media was free to set up their own tally center. Something which is so strange. If we try to do the same here in Uganda. Yeah. Actually, here in Uganda, even taking your camera at a polling station, I don't know what would happen next.
Yeah, the media, you know, Kenyan media is very interesting. I like it. I like it for one thing. It's under a core kind of statute, a core regulation kind of model. It is government regulated by the Kenyan Media Council, and also there is some element of the self-regulation by it's called the Editors Guild. So by doing so, they take their own responsibility. You know, they check them. They check themselves through that guild, but also the council is also ever guiding them and regulating them on how to tackle business. The advantage with their council is that it is friendly and it's empowering to the media, which is not the case with a lot of other media councils we are familiar with. So, and there is a lot of dialoguing between the guild and the council. Also, they have also the union, which is equally active. So it gives them the kind of comparative edge when it comes to how we deal with us. And when it comes to
my biggest concern here, Moses, is that here our media seems to be a threat to the state in such scenarios. When it's an election process, the media is taken as a threat, by the way, which is not the same, which is not the case in Kenya.
No, that could be an impression that is created. The media, if well regulated and managed, it can be a very good tool for organizing elections and promoting democracy. The challenge, you can see by how the Kenyan one functioned. During all this period, there were so many contrasting views and tabulations, you know, permutations made on the election.
And even media houses had different results.
Yes, and they take different sides, the traditional side and the conservatives. You could see the diversity that was playing out in the media in Kenya, which is not the case with us. First of all, we just need to first free media space. Allow them to
exercise
but that is not possible if there is lacking regulation and lacking structures. So perhaps
and empowering bodies.
Perhaps we may reverse the course. Can we look into matters of the structures of those bodies that manage the media in our country? And we have a very kind of lengthy conversation on how effective these councils these media houses can run at that level, at the structural level. There is a lot to be done, and also looking into the laws that govern the media, make them more empowering
than restrictive.
And also, like, change the mindset of the policymakers and the politicians on Uganda's media, how they view it. And that has trickled down to how we even think in the media ourselves. We make pronouncements as our media being a threat to the state.
Moses, I need your very last shot in 20 seconds.
My last shot is that there is a lot. The elections now are done, and perhaps there will be a recourse to, in the courts of law. We wait to see what will happen, but above all, there are so many lessons that we draw. I think the Kenyans have showed us they are toweringly higher than us in terms of democracy
and political maturity.
We need to pull up our socks as a country, and there could be lessons that we could draw from their democracy, and that is like throwing the ball in the court of our politicians here. I think it is all about you, Osinde. It's all about people in NRM, DP, and all our political parties to see what are the good practices that we can draw from the Kenyan experience and we can apply here to better the lives of our people and of our nation.
Thank you so much. Mr. Muguzi, if you're there, I'm also giving you 20 seconds to give me your last shot.
Thank you. The last shot is that unlike Uganda, where, like you said, the media are the enemy, I think vibrant democracy would want to have a vibrant media and vibrant civil and a security institutions that are not interfering with the electoral process, only facilitating. Thank you very much.
Thank
you
so much, Mr. Muguzi. And of course, Mr. Osinde, the biggest man, the spokesperson of 26 political parties.
I want to thank you for this invite, but again, call upon my brothers in Kenya that there's need to disagree and agree respectively. This has happened, but if the next course of action is to be done, we need to respect that we need peace in the region.
And we need one another.
We need one another. There are many options that you can take without necessarily banning your country, without killing anybody. I pray that peace prevails in Kenya.
Thank you so much. I also want to thank all of you who have been part of the discussion. I am sorry I did not open the studio lines. I not even read the comments. I think the conversation was really, I don't know. I am really sorry. I apologize for that. And then for my panelists, I want to thank you for creating time to be part of tonight's discussion. Mr. Osinde, out of your busy schedules, you managed to make it here. Bwana Moses Magoola, I know much about your schedules, and having you here, it has not been a joke, and it's something easy. And then for Mr. Muguzi, I really appreciate your time that you've been able to share with us since you're much on ground. I really thank you and appreciate, and even next time when we call upon you, please just be available to see how we can also add a voice in making our country better. For our viewers, I thank you so much, and until next time again. But again, before I let you go, I have to let you know that every Saturday we have a new program. It's called The Interface with Dr. Chiza Besije. Every Saturday, Dr. Chiza Besije will be here where we are seated here, and he will be discussing on a number of things. And so next Saturday, please be much on the watch. Dr. Chiza Besije will be here. My name is Abdalatif. I wish you a good evening. Until Monday, good night.
Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.